Good morning, and thank you for being with us. When storms were raging and flooding was putting residents' lives at risk earlier this month up in Vermont, a Connecticut team was called in to help with search and rescue operations. This morning, two members of the Connecticut Task Force One's Urban Search and Rescue Team are joining me to share their experiences responding to calls for help. We welcome Sergeant Ashley Harkins and Lieutenant Dan Comen. Dan, you are with the Southington Fire Department.
Correct.
Ashley, you are with the Connecticut State Police, and you come together along with other people on this team. So, Dan, explain, what is the team? When does it get called out?
Yeah, so it's a multidisciplinary rescue team. It's based out of Hartford, Connecticut. We're made up of firefighters, police officers, state troopers, structural engineers. So basically, we're there to supplement local municipalities in the event they have a rescue incident that exceeds their capability or they need to supplement resources. So we have the ability to respond to structural collapse incidents, trench rescues, swiftwater rescues, wide area search incidents. So really any large-scale disaster, unique incident, we have a cache of equipment and then the personnel to help these municipalities.
And I know swiftwater is one of the things that you specialize in, and of course that's what we saw up in Vermont. So this was the first time, the team's been around for a long time, first time deployed out of the state. You go up there, actually get up to Vermont. I mean, we all saw the pictures of the devastation and the boats going down roads, and I know you guys did that kind of work. So what do you find when you get up there?
It was pretty remarkable. I'm actually from Vermont, so it was nice to be able to go home and to help people that, I didn't know specifically, but that I lived in that area for my whole life. Areas I've been to, and just seeing that they were completely flooded. We were driving along I-89, and you'd look over, something that's normally just a field of grass or corn is literally now filled with water, almost up to the roadway. So it was pretty remarkable.
I know we have a lot of pictures we can show, Dan, and I said swiftwater is something that you specialize in. I was reading a little bit about what you guys were up against. I mean, it's not like you were backing a trailer down a boat launch and heading out and helping people. I mean, it was tough conditions even to launch your boats, right?
Yeah, the access is usually the most difficult part of swiftwater rescue, especially with flood environments, because we don't have a boat launch to go to. We can't get to local roads because they're flooded and they're completely impassable. So in this case, on our first mission on Tuesday, we had to launch off of I-89 down an embankment, through a culvert, over railroad tracks, and now into this flooded cornfield.
And that means you're carrying the boat down to get it in?
We're carrying a boat that weighs over 500 pounds with miscellaneous equipment. So having a lot of manpower is important for this.
What was I know you're a medic as well, Ashley. What was the mission once you get that boat in the water? Were you given, go to 123 Main Street and make sure the person's okay, or was it just go check out a wide area and help whoever you needed to?
It started out with a 911 call that Vermont had received the night before. A woman was trapped in her home, and she was up on top of her cupboards with the water level rising. So our mission that morning was to go to her residence and rescue her. And along in doing that, we were also told by other residents that lived in the area of areas they knew were actually evacuated, that people weren't in there anymore, but also some that they weren't sure of. So we did end up going to another residence, found some people and their pets, and were able to get them out as well. And that mission kind of developed into checking other areas that we weren't certain of. So they weren't sure if somebody lived in this house or that house, so we explored the area, went to the residence, made sure that nobody was in there stuck, stranded, not being able to call for help or get help.
And you mentioned the pets. I know the tally for the Connecticut team was 5 humans rescued and 3 pets as well. And no one who has a pet is going to say a pet's trivial, but pets are important because people will go back to their house to get their pet, and then you have a whole other series of issues. So that's part of the team's mission as well, to grab Fido.
Yeah, for the fire service, animals hold the same value as a human does, because if we don't go get them, someone else is going to do it, and they're going to put themselves in a bad position, and we're going to have to rescue that person. So we have specialty training in dealing with animals in a flood environment that the team received a few years ago to prepare for this. And that's just knowing the signs of an animal in distress and how to handle them properly, because they're obviously scared and fight or flight mode.
Sure.
So having the right gear to get them onto our boat and back to shore was vital for the mission.
Does it change your task? I mean, we saw flooding similar to this after Irene up in Vermont, and some of the same communities had devastating floods. But they're not on the coast. They're not on Long Island Sound. They're not on the Atlantic Ocean during a hurricane. And yet you have houses that are surrounded by water that you're having to access by boat. Does it change your mission at all when you're up north as opposed to, say, along the Connecticut shoreline or somewhere else?
It's very different. So the coastal flood environment, that's tidal waters coming in. This is raging rivers in the North Country where the water is moving extremely fast, and it's rising rapidly, and it's only held back by dams. So we have that constant rise of the water that continued for about 3 days while we were up there till it finally crested and started to come down. So we're dealing with a dynamic environment that's constantly changing for us.
Talk about the training, actually. I know we heard about all the different types of people who are on the team, and then you have to be ready for North Country flooding, but also a structural collapse. So what goes into that training to make sure that whoever gets the call is ready?
Like Dan said, USAR is made up of several different components, so different people have their different specialties. I fall more under the medical umbrella. However, I did cross-train in the Swiftwater. So about a year ago, I took the initial Swiftwater class and then took the advanced class after that in order to get my Swiftwater training. But I'm very new to the team. I just got on it, getting into it, and getting my classes last year. But that only makes me eligible for that. So I don't partake in things like trench, high-angle rescue. I have the basic core class that's required, but then other classes build upon that. So you take something that's called core, gets you into your initial training, and then you can start to take these other classes that get you into those other things. Firemen generally have all of those from their previous training, so it makes them much more kind of well-rounded for that. I fell into the medical branch because of my paramedic background, but I was really happy to get into the Swiftwater background last year and get on the Swiftwater team.
Both of you know the way that a news reporter out on the scene knows. It is amazing to see when someone really needs help, how many people come. When you see how many state police cruisers or how many fire trucks or ambulances or medics come. People watching this today might not even know that your team existed. And yet, probably if you were needed, you're needed bad, like maybe more than all those other people. So do you think people should take comfort in knowing that your team is there if they need them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a specialty discipline that not a lot of departments do. And it's definitely a need that Connecticut needs, as well as the rest of the region. Vermont has a really robust search and rescue component to their state. A lot of swiftwater rescue teams, but the scope of this disaster, they needed us, they needed people from Michigan, all over the country to supplement their resources.
And there are teams all over the country that do this, and you guys were able to help out of state. If, God forbid, Connecticut ever needs the same help, people will be rushing in here, and I guess that should make our viewers feel confident that people like you will be there to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last year we called resources in from out of state, other swiftwater rescue teams, when we had some heavy rain coming in as a precaution. So we've used the resources before in state.
All right. Lieutenant Dan Comen, Sergeant Ashley Harkins, thank you both for being with us here on CT23.
Thank you.